Welcome back. For people viewing online, our final forum features candidates for the mayor of West Sacramento. Joining us this evening is Mayor Martha Guerrero, our incumbent, and Mayor Pro Tem Dante Early, Councilmember District 3. Thank you both for being here tonight. We're going to start by going over the rules for tonight's forum. This is a forum, not a debate. We intend to ask thoughtful questions and get thoughtful responses. Candidates, please direct your answers to the audience and not to your fellow candidates. Please also do not attack, interrupt, or make any sounds while another candidate is speaking. I will adjust the order in which I ask candidates the questions so that you each have a chance to be the first to answer. I will indicate how much time is allowed per question. We have a timekeeper who will provide a 30-second warning of your remaining time and a 15-second warning. The 15-second warning means you need to complete your final sentence or thought. The timekeeper will hold up a stop sign when your time is up. If necessary, I will politely interrupt you if you exceed your time. To help the voters watching this forum, we ask that you draw contrast between you and the other candidates. We encourage you to be specific when answering questions, offer clear solutions, and avoid repeating what has already been said. When necessary, you may be asked to give a brief clarification of your answer for the benefit of our audience and may be asked a follow-up question. We encourage our viewers to share questions in the chat. We will add community questions as we are able. Let's get started with your opening statements. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself to our online audience, provide some background about yourself, and explain why you are running for the mayor of West Sacramento. Prior to tonight, we randomly selected who will go first. We will begin with Mayor Pro Tem Dante Early.
Thank you for having me. I am truly honored to be here tonight to share why I'm running for mayor of West Sacramento. Again, my name is Dr. Dante Early, and I actually currently serve as president and CEO of a local nonprofit where I work to end poverty, empower families, and invest in our children's future. My career has always been about public service, advocating for equity, mental health, and education. I've also had the privilege to serve on the West Sacramento City Council, focusing on the issues that matter most to our communities. As a mom raising my daughter here, I'm deeply concerned about the direction we've gone over the past 4 years. We face serious challenges, from strained public safety resources and crumbling infrastructure to the urgent need for affordable housing and solutions for transportation and homelessness. After 4 years, we're not better off, and that's why I stepped up to lead. I believe in bringing people together to make the tough decisions needed to move us forward. When you love your community as much as I do, you don't stand on the sidelines, you step up. And that's exactly why I work so hard as your city council member, and it is exactly why I am running for mayor. On the city council, I've supported over 300 new units of affordable housing, secured $30 million in infrastructure repairs, and led the creation of the Community Response Unit to provide compassionate care for those in crisis. I've also championed minority-owned businesses because I believe our economy should uplift everyone. As mayor, I will build on this foundation, expanding opportunities for small businesses, further investing in affordable housing, and improving our roads. I'm proud to have been endorsed from diverse voices, including the West Sacramento Democratic Club, the Sacramento Bee, the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the Sacramento Metro Chamber PAC. But I'm running because as a mom, as a community member, and as a council member, I care about our city. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for watching, and I'm excited about what we can achieve together.
Thank you. Mayor Guerrero.
Thank you so much to the Chamber for organizing this candidate forum, and thank you to the public for tuning in. I think it's incredibly important for all of us to learn more about the differences for who is running for mayor. And the reason I am running for mayor, after serving for 6 years on council and mayor for 4 years, and 16 years serving on several boards and commissions, the Local Mental Health Board being the first board where I was able to work closely with Supervisor Helen Thompson to open opportunities to access mental health services, where we've been able to pair up police officers and clinicians together. And that program remains today, providing compassionate outreach to those who are in crisis. Furthermore, we have looked at how to bolster our police department. Prior to being in council, for under 2 years was 50% of our police department in their level of experience. Now, there is 5 years of 50% of the police department that have that experience. I think that is very important for us to keep our police officers. We are seeing a rise in our fire service need. Since, for the last 10 years, we've gone 50% in calls for a firefighter service, medical needs and others. And we also see the infrastructure, the need for additional investment. I am demanding that we have fiscal transparency and accountability in our financial. We haven't had a budget. As a result of that, it's really difficult for everybody to determine where to spend our money. So we have Measure O on the ballot, but in addition to that, I would like to have a fiscal oversight committee, including the citizens, because it's important to have their voice on council to give us the guidance that we need.
Okay, thank you. We're going to get started with our first question, going in an alternative order. Mayor Guerrero. The upcoming relocation of the A's to Sutter Health Park is exciting news. With home games for 2 MLB teams beginning in 5 months, what plans would you recommend that address the increased demand for parking around the stadium, nearby businesses and neighborhoods, and infrastructure improvements?
So we are working both with the Major League Baseball team and ML, also looking at parking structures around the city and in Sacramento. Also bringing in opportunities to get more public transportation. We've expanded VIA to initially establish the transportation from Sacramento to West Sacramento, and also making sure that it is accessible throughout the entire city. We also need to get more bicycles and scooters, to be able to have parking and locations for them to be able to have access. So our trails are incredibly important to continue that infrastructure growth. As far as the transportation, the traffic and what we anticipate, our police department is doing a great job. We have Lieutenant Winger, who's had a lot of experience, and I'm being kept briefed by what is going on in the planning efforts, making sure that as we see the influx of growth here in traffic, that we're able to manage it and that the roads are safe. And so those are some of the efforts that we are planning. We have a parking structure next to Sutter Health Park, which is down the road, that we're looking to make sure that we secure that as a resource for parking as well. So what we need to do is make sure that we have a robust access to parking on both sides, working with Sacramento City and also in coordination with the police department on both sides. So that's some of the planning that has gone into place, and we continue to look forward to planning those efforts as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up question to that. How do you feel about public funding for sports facilities? And how would you support tax incentives or subsidies for the expansion of MLB activities in West Sacramento?
I do think that is a conversation that we need to have in the community, but we do have the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District that is currently in place in the Bridge District, where we could have an expansion of Major League Baseball in the riverfront. And that is a resource that is accessible to all developers in the area. That would be perceived as public funds, and that is what is accessible to make sure that the infrastructure needs are in place so that anybody that is around the area is able to benefit as well. That could include parking, but that also is the underground, whether it be the electricity, the drainage. We just want to make sure that it is accessible, and then we will continue to have the conversation. I haven't made a determination yet for whether or not we will be providing public funds. It's something that we need to have as a conversation on council and with the community at large.
Okay, thank you. Another follow-up question to that. I know it's a hot topic. Transparency is coming up a lot in the online forum, and so we want to address, in the event that public funds are used to support the expansion, how would you ensure that taxpayers' interests are protected?
You're right. Transparency, Jacqueline, is important. Without a budget, that's something that I've been demanding for 4 years, and I need a third vote and have not had a third vote in order to receive an entire budget. Transparency to make sure that we put it online for everybody in the entire region to be able to see where our funding is going. And so I understand now that we have taken a vote so that we can have an online budget for everybody to take a look at next year. And I would like to have a fiscal oversight commission to work with us so that that'll be with the public who will participate, and also with labor organizations who are represented here who do have a stake in what's going on in the city, so that we can make sure that they all have the ability to participating in the accountability and oversight of our fiscal expenditures of the city, including the A's and what is going on with the growth there.
Okay, thank you. Dante, we're going to go back to the first question. The upcoming relocation of the A's to Sutter Health Park is exciting news. With home games for the MLB teams beginning in 5 months, what plans would you recommend that address the increased demand for parking around the stadium, nearby businesses and neighborhoods, as well as infrastructure improvements?
So I think it's important to highlight that not only are the A's coming, which is very exciting, but our Sacramento River Cats are still going to be here. And so what that means is we will have games for nearly 6 months out of the year, almost daily games. That is going to be a huge impact on not only our local businesses, and so an opportunity, but also an impact on our community members. We've done a lot in regards to preparing for parking issues as well as traffic issues, but I actually think that we could be doing more to prepare and also to coordinate with our local cities. What I've actually asked our city manager to do is to actually put a program lead in charge. And so when I think about all of the different aspects that are happening, you have public safety, you also have parking, you have, again, small business or economic development department, and then you also have the need to coordinate with the other cities. It's important that you are able to, again, filtrate that up to one lead, ensuring that with these very tight deadlines, because they're coming whether we're ready or not, that we actually are prepared. One of the other things I'm really proud that we have done recently in our past city council is that we actually put forward our small business program, and also in that invested $250,000 to ensure that, similar to Visit Sacramento and a small, almost mini P-bid for our local businesses here around the stadium, that they are also going to be prepared so that we are engaging with those small businesses, asking them what do they need. We're also investing in those needs. And so it's not only parking, it's not only public safety in regards to our traffic, it is also ensuring that we are engaging not only with small businesses, but also the local community, because they are going to be impacted the most. Lastly, what I would say about that is what we haven't done in regards to the A's is ensured that West Sacramento is seeing the same community investments that happened in Oakland. And so the question that should be asked, and that our job is to ask, is where are those community investment dollars going? Those that were invested in that community, how do we ensure that they're actually invested here in West Sacramento?
Similar question to the one I asked before. How do you feel about public funding for sports facilities? I'll just follow up once you respond to that.
Okay. I think it's important that it makes fiscal sense. And so one of the things that we have always been really good at in West Sacramento, when other cities around us, again, years ago, were going into deficits and going into the red, we always were fiscally responsible. And I think that we need to continue to do that. I do think that our budget, which we have access to, and in fact, our city staff have done a really great job of even creating budget sheets so that we understand where all the dollars are going, have helped us. But I think what's going to be important as you talk about transparency is, does it make sense for our city? In other words, will Sacramento benefit from that investment? And I think that will be important before we can decide whether or not public dollars should go to investing in a MLB team.
Okay. You answered the follow-up question, so I'm going to skip that one for you if that's okay.
I'm efficient.
Okay. All right, the next question is going to go to you, Dante. As a Chamber of Commerce, we believe that sound business growth and sustainability are a critical part of the city's economic success. If elected, what type of housing development growth do you want to see in West Sacramento?
So I've been proud to be endorsed by the Sacramento Metro Chamber, PAC, as well as the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I'm also really proud to be Most Admired CEO this year by the Sacramento Business Journal, as well as Women Who Mean Business by the Sacramento Business Journal. What that means is that business is important, and that is an area that I have led in and will continue to lead in. And I think it's important that our government works for our community. In regards to where I would lead for housing, one of the things that actually brought me to West Sacramento was our affordable housing. I think it will be important that we continue to look at incentives for developing affordable housing. I think it will be important to incentivize affordable by design projects. And I also think it will be important to encourage and build on public-private partnerships, as well as projects like the Huddle that I will be doing a ribbon cutting for tomorrow, in which we were able to help lower barriers to bring that development and that affordable housing to West Sacramento.
Thank you. Mayor Guerrero, same question. As a Chamber of Commerce, we believe that sound business growth and sustainability are a critical part of the city's economic success. If elected, what type of housing development growth do you want to see in West Sacramento?
So I've been really proud to engage with the developers as well as businesses and those who are in need of affordable housing, because we want to make sure that all the partners are in place and at the table to make the decisions on what kind of housing and whether this housing is going to be productive for all involved, for those that are their neighbors and for those that are in need of the housing. So the Huddle is a project that we are able to provide affordable housing for college single parents. Also, the Washington Commons is a program that has been affordable as well, where you have older adults who are able to move into a shared housing model. And that's been a very successful model so far, in that all the units are almost sold. And in addition to that, we've had the Tower Bridge Gateway, which is a partnership that we've had with the state. And we continue to look for partnerships, as I have done at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, where I'm vice chair of the Children's Health and Human Services program, where I've also been on the U.S. Homelessness Task Force with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, because we need to advocate for more federal funding in order to be successful. We also need to make sure that we bridge our relationship with the banks to provide the financing for the housing. We need housing, affordable housing throughout the city in corridors where people can access public transportation. Because here in West Sacramento, we are 22% of a disadvantaged community, whereas statewide, it's 14%. That means that individuals that live in a disadvantaged community only have one car, and that public transportation need is more essential for them to get to work. That's why VIA is incredibly important, which is why I've been so supportive, because it provides the first and last mile for individuals to have a place to go to have public transportation to get to work. And it's been very effective, especially in the Brighton-Broderick community, where 60% of the individuals there use VIA. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we need to have all the partners in the table when we take a look at establishing affordable housing here in West Sacramento.
Sort of a follow-up and related. What steps would you take to ensure that ongoing and future business development in our city does not exacerbate the issue of homelessness?
Well, as you described, we do have a condition of unhoused individuals here, where it is difficult to find support. Our partnership with the county has been essential. And as a result of my role as mayor, my relationship working with them on the mental health board, and the support I have received by the Yolo County Board of Supervisors, continuing my role as mayor, we have received funding from the county to provide supportive housing. The supportive housing is going to be provided to those individuals who are unhoused, but also have a mental health and substance abuse condition in order to keep them stable. Earlier today, I was able to visit Recovery Cafe to hear about the planning on the expansion of the Recovery Cafe, which is to provide crisis intervention services that Sutter Health has been able to enrich their programming, but also been effective in securing $250,000 to sustain their growth and to make sure that that operation is reaching out to those in need. So we have an incredible partnership that I would like to continue to nurture and support as we move forward in making sure that all the programming that we have in place is reaching out to those in need to bring them off the streets.
Dante, same question. What steps would you take to ensure that ongoing and future business development in our city does not exacerbate the issue of homelessness?
So I think that West Sacramento has done a great job, quite honestly, in creating affordable housing opportunities. when I think about the needs for homelessness, I actually think about how do we go more upstream. And the reason why I say that is as much as we will provide services, and I think that it's necessary that we are making sure that those that are currently unhoused are getting those needs met and that we're getting folks off the street and providing them wraparound services like 1801 West Cap, in which we provided both a public-private partnership, roughly $8 million of West Sacramento tax dollars paired with project-based vouchers from the county. I sit on the Housing Authority, and so I was proud to actually approve that. As much as that is important, and we need to continue to do those things, we need to continue to purchase motels in order to provide housing and transitional housing for those who are unhoused. I think it's just as important that we actually focus on prevention methods, because again, for every 3 folks that become that we that every one first folk that we end up housing, 3 people are actually, or 3 households are becoming unhoused. And so there actually is more that West Sacramento could and should be doing in regards to partnership, including working with CalAIM and working with our Health and Human Services partners to take advantage of the fact that Medi-Cal now provides first month's rent, last month's rent, pays to help things get off of your credit so that you can become housed and so that you're not evicted. And so there are actually significant opportunities that we have not taken advantage of for prevention, not just intervention when it comes to homelessness. As mayor, that is something that I would focus on. There are other cities, by the way, that are doing that, and I think West Sacramento should be leaning into that with our county here in Yolo County.
Changing topics slightly. Dante, this question will go to you first. Small business owners often cite excessive regulation and internal city processes that as a challenge and frequently a hindrance. What changes, if any, would you advocate to streamline these problems and help small businesses grow?
I think we are taking steps based on, quite honestly, long-term plans that we had put into place that started actually with Councilmember Ledesma in our small incubator business program. And so I'm proud that we were able to really push and make that a priority for this year. And we actually recently in our past city council meeting invested in our small business program. That looks like how do we ensure that we are streamlining permitting processes for small businesses? How do we ensure that things that need to be fixed around your building are actually, you're able to fix those, and how do we support you with small business loans? And then you also heard about our program in which we are supporting businesses that are small businesses that are around Sutter Health Park, and again, investing in what are the needs that they may have to take advantage of the A's coming. I think in addition to that, we have our cannabis equity program, our dispensary program, in which we have really leaned in to creating an environment in which those who may not normally have access to starting a small business, particularly in the cannabis industry, will be able to have that seed investment, but also the wraparound services. How do we help you build a business plan? How do we make sure that you have the right location? And how do we ensure that you're successful? And so I think there's more that our city could be doing. I think we are on the right track, and I think it's going to take strong leadership, a commitment, and focus and vision in order to ensure that we can continue to build that and thrive. We know that small businesses all around us are closing. They need us now more than ever. They are the lifeblood of our community, and we need to be thinking about how we can help them, because again, those dollars go right back into our community.
Thank you. Martha, same question. Small business owners often cite to excessive regulation and internal city processes as a challenge and frequently a hindrance. What changes, if any, would you advocate to streamline these processes and help small businesses grow?
Jacqueline, thank you. That's an excellent question. And the reason is because I have been in touch with the small business owners here. La Estrellita, for example, the little market that had the car rammed into and impacted their ability to stay open. It took them 4 years to get the permit. Why does it take 4 years to get a permit? I don't know. They decided it was difficult to get an appointment. I hear that once they get their plans drawn, they have to, and then there's a slight change, they have to go to the beginning of the line. We have to do a better job to streamline this. That has been a priority when I've been in touch with Region Business, who's provided some recommendations. I put the city manager in touch with region business with those ideas. It just seems like we have a hard time administratively to make those changes. And I want to continue to push for that to the businesses who I've been in touch with through the Mayor's Business Roundtable, where we canvass many of the businesses who are telling us they are struggling. They cannot make the business improvements. Now, the Small Business Accelerator Program was not going to be implemented until March. That's way too late as we take a look at the A's coming into town. What I needed done is to get it up and started immediately. So fortunately, it's coming back to council in our first meeting in November so that we can get a startup immediately for our small businesses to do cosmetic improvements, and then take a look at Permit Pal, which fortunately we will see when it's implemented whether it is effective. Permit Pal is going to be an online, streamlined program for businesses. What I'd like to make sure and test it out is for our businesses who are interested in getting renovations, and those that I've heard from who are ready to get started, to get their kitchen renovated or to have a little room that they have had closed and can expand it to include more capacity so that they can cheer and bring on the A's fans here to West Sacramento. We want them to all be proud. We want them to be having the opportunity to receive the growing crowds that are going to be coming to West Sacramento, because that is how West Sacramento will thrive. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do through the Small Business Accelerator Program, streamlining permitting process, expediting those permits to get approved, and financing to get those permits covered.
Okay. Thank you. This question is going to go back to you. On May 15, 2024, you both joined your city council colleagues in a unanimous vote to pass and adopt the resolution to place a 1-cent sales tax, Measure O, on the November ballot. The unions representing fire and police, as well as the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce, endorsed Measure O. Some business owners fear that higher sales taxes could drive customers away or hurt their bottom line. Some residents perceive a lack of accountability in use of previous tax measures. What steps would you take to mitigate potential negative effects on local businesses?
Well, we do have Measure N that is dedicated to small businesses, and we're going to continue to provide them with the financing that they need to make the improvements in their business. What I am hearing from residents is that we have been taxed, and it is a difficult time in this climate with the high cost of electricity rates, where I'm taking a look at what we can do to provide some support and also access to resources through PG&E to reduce those costs, because I don't think that everybody is tapping that. And also taking a look at what improvements could be made in their businesses, since they have outdated refrigerators and other appliances that can hopefully reduce the cost of electricity for them. I think we can take a closer look at the businesses and provide them with the financing that they need. Yes, we did put Measure O on the ballot. No, I did not receive an entire budget, which would have been very helpful. I do anticipate that we will possibly see the need to, if Measure O does not pass, having a fiscal oversight and transparency committee come in and take a look at possibly cuts in other program areas, redirecting maybe some of the measure funding that we have to our priorities, our highest priorities, which is our police officers and our firefighters and our roads. Those are the areas that I've been hearing, and also addressing the unhoused individuals, working with our partners at the county, federal, and state level to make sure that we have additional funding. I've seen how we've been able to leverage like $1 billion from the federal level to get the levy funded, where we were able to do that by applying our property tax funding for the levies. So I do see that our current funding can leverage state and federal funding in order to ensure that we can draw down more funding from our government partners, which is why I've had the support of Congresswoman Matsui. We've had an incredible partnership, and the support of the Yolo County supervisors to ensure that we have a wonderful, productive community.
Thank you. Follow-up question to that. So, and I mentioned it, I can't remember if it's this debate, they're all blending together at this point, or another one, or forum, or the one prior, but transparency is coming up frequently in the discussion. So with respect to Measure O, assuming it passes, how would you ensure that transparency and how would you ensure transparency and accountability in how the funds are used?
Well, yes. When that measure was before us, I had requested to have a Fiscal Oversight and Accountability Commission included in the ballot. That is what provides the assurance for the voters to know that that funding is going to be going to exactly that. It is a general fund, source, but it is an advisory measure where we are saying the priorities listed on the measure is where council will direct the funding. Council has been dedicated on the measures that have been approved to directing funding to those areas that are in the advisory measure. All the measures are general fund measures, but if you go back, which is why we provided the information, those the funding has been directed as committed to. 50% on Measure N has gone to the police officers. We didn't fund firefighters as much. They are in need. 50% increase in calls for service. There is a demand and a need as our city grows. We have a huge, growth coming up ahead. So we need to make sure that we have the financing and we direct our revenue, our tax revenue sources to the local government infrastructure needs.
Okay, great. This is my own question because I've heard it came up in the prior forum on the online chat, but we didn't have time for it. Can you explain to the audience online why specific dollars are not allocated in these measures to specific items, like dollar for dollar percentages? Are you able to answer that for the audience to explain why it's done from a management perspective?
So the question, if you can clarify for me what the question is.
Example, so why specifically in Measure O, how it was passed, or how it was approved to get onto the ballot, why it doesn't specifically state 50% of tax dollars are gonna go to roads?
That is an excellent question. In order for it to be 50% approval by the voters, it cannot have that specific percentage on the ballot measure, because that would then it would require it to be 60%. However, if the voters decided to put a ballot measure through a signature gathering effort, which could be done independently, they can put through a signature gathering effort, put a ballot measure and only require the 50%, they could state which percentage, and then they could still approve it by 50%. However, we decided to do it on council, which means that threshold is 50% non-specific to which percentage goes where.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dante, same question. I'm going to go back to the beginning. On May 15, 2024, the entire city council and mayor voted unanimously to pass and adopt the resolution to place a 1-cent sales tax, Measure O, on the November ballot. The unions representing fire and police, as well as the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce, endorsed Measure O. Some business owners fear that higher sales taxes could drive customers away or hurt their bottom line. Some residents perceive a lack of accountability in the use of previous tax measures. What steps would you take to mitigate potential negative effects on local businesses?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think it's important that we also realize and understand that many of the dollars that are going to be coming hopefully for Measure O are going to come from places like IKEA, places like Walmart, in which folks are coming from out of town to frequent these businesses. And so we want to make sure that we're capturing those, again, from out of towners. I think it's also important that for every $100 that is spent, $1 is going to go towards Measure O. It's going to go to things like, again, our roads. It's going to go to things like our police. It's going to go to things like our fire. And it's going to go to addressing homelessness and our parks. I also think it's important that we realize that by 2035, if we continue on this and we want to talk about budget transparency, and we got a couple of presentations from our staff on this, and I appreciated the hard work that they did in explaining to us and being transparent about not only where previous dollars have gone, but where these dollars would go. By 2035, if we continue, and again, rates continue to increase and we spend, and we don't change the proportion of anything that we spend, projecting out, we are going to go into a deficit, and there are going to be hard cuts that are going to need to be made if this does not pass. In regards to our businesses, the hope would be that as we are fixing our roads, as our city becomes more livable, as we are increasing our parks, that will also bring individuals to our city to hopefully then increase the bottom lines of our businesses. I'd also like to talk about transparency, and when we think about the cuts that potentially would need to be made made in redirecting any of the measures. I think we should be careful in those conversations because, again, voters were very specific of where those dollars should go to, just like it would go here for Measure O. And it's not something that we can simply redirect dollars here and there. We have to be true and responsible and, again, transparent to what the voters asked and voted on each of those measures. And so that's a careful, slippery slope that we're going to need to mine.
Well, you led right into my follow-up question. If the sales tax increase is approved, how would you ensure that transparency and accountability and how the funds are used?
I think it's important that we not only continue to be transparent with the measures that we have. I think, again, the staff did an amazing job at ensuring that we have a whole visual presentation on where dollars are currently going on the measures that we have, but that is updated annually. I also think it's going to be important that we not only have that independent audit that is required, by the way, for these kinds of measures, but that we're also posting that independent audit online and making it readily accessible to our community members and ensuring that they know that it's posted online, right? Simply posting it and not saying anything can sometimes, whether you're being transparent or not, if people don't know that it's there, it could feel and be perceived as if it's not transparent. I also think it's going to be important that we leave space throughout the year in our city council meetings to report out on where these dollars are being spent and how they're being spent. I also think it would be really helpful as you're traversing through the city to actually have signs that point to this was paid by Measure K, this is being paid by Measure O, so you can visually see where your dollars are going. Because again, they're going to the places that we voted for. We need to do a better job of communicating that to our residents.
I'm going to ask the same follow-up question I asked to Mayor Guerrero. Can you explain in your own words to the voters why specifically the dollars or the percentages are not specifically allocated in Measure O as it sits on the ballot?
Absolutely. This is actually a conversation that we took up at City Council, and for the reasons that Mayor Guerrero listed, that is actually why we aren't able to be specific about where those dollars are going. We had the option of doing thresholds, and this is the option that we chose. I will say that we listened to our voters in regards to the polling of what were the issues that were coming up for them as being the high priority issues, both affordable housing, both homelessness, our roads, and public safety were things that were flagged by a resident, and I think it's important that Measure O passes, and it is in response to our community voices.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, if you are elected, Dante, this question will go to you. What efforts can you as a leader in the community make to bring civil discourse among neighbors to the election and governance process in West Sacramento?
I appreciate that question. It is a hard time in regards to just civil political conversations. And it's not something that we're just experiencing locally here in West Sacramento. I think just discourse at the federal level and the state level bleeds over even to our community. I think that it is important that people feel heard and seen. I think it is even more important now that we will be in all 4 districts, that the mayor is leading and working with each of those district representatives to ensure, as we are marching forward on this strong strategic vision that I have for our city, that we are not forgetting that each of those districts now have unique needs and representation, and those voices should be heard. I think it is the mayor's job to work closely with each of those district representatives to ensure that the unique needs of the community is being met. What is happening in Bridgeway Lakes and in Southport may not be the same needs that are happening in the north and Brighton Broderick. That doesn't mean that either one should be ignored. It is even more important now that we have an at-large mayor in 4 districts that our mayor be able to work with each of those district representatives. I think when we think about civil discourse, that it starts at the top, and that it is important that our mayor be seen collaborating and partnering with our community, not only our community members, but also colleagues on city council. I think that is extremely important. I also think it is important that our mayor be seen leading our city staff, encouraging our city staff, and ensuring that they know that they are supported. And ultimately, if things aren't happening at the city level, the buck stops with the mayor, not with our city staff, and it is our job, both as City Council, but also as the mayor, to ensure that the needs of our community are being met.
Thank you. Mayor Guerrero, same question. If you are elected, what efforts can you as a leader in the community make to bring civil discourse among neighbors to the election and governance process in West Sacramento?
Thank you, Jacqueline. Currently, as mayor, we are having discussions at the U.S. Conference of Mayors level and also as president of the Sacramento Valley Division League, California League of Cities. We are talking about the challenges that we are seeing in the community as it relates to being a candidate for mayor. We know that this is very challenging times where there are huge differences. There's a divide among those who are supporting, certain candidates, and we need to have boots on the ground as mayor. We need to be present, visible, connected to the community, engaging with them, and that's exactly what I have done as mayor. I've knocked on those doors, canvassing, speaking to the neighbors, asking what their priorities are, making sure that we implement their voice on council, that there is no party affiliation associated with this role as mayor. It is representing the people in city council, and that provides the calming sense for the individuals once they feel heard. Say, for example, the Brighton Broderick community, who have been engaging with council and have found it difficult over the years, where now the investments are being made in an area that is in most need, where you've seen the gang injunction in the past, and that gang injunction has disappeared. The investment of $30 million for Brighton Broderick, for the Bright Park, where you're going to see now all of the resources, because if people feel that they are getting their needs addressed, that their voice is heard, that their representation and their voice matters to the council members, well, then you will see a calmer and more involved and engaged citizenry. So that's why it's important as mayor and to be reelected as mayor, and where I would be honored to have their vote, to continue to listen to their needs, to engage them and involve them in the future of our city, to make sure that they are heard.
Thank you. Mayor Guerrero, what is your perspective on the role of the port in the city of West Sacramento? What do you see as the benefits to the city, and what do you see as the impacts to the city?
The port here, as a port commissioner myself, where I have two roles, recently been involved in being a port commissioner, we have seen the port growth, economically speaking, bring in revenue. There is an opportunity for the port to continue to grow stronger. There are plans among SSA Marine, the tenant, who is currently occupying and has a lease agreement for the port's future plans, to see an opportunity to grow and bring in more products and more distribution of products throughout our region. It is an economic engine for our community to make sure that we see those resources not only get exported from our agricultural community through our entire region, but also imported and brought into our community. It's been it has had some difficult times in the past, and I see that currently our lease is short-term at 5 years. What I think the city and the Port Commission need to do is take a look at a longer-standing lease so that that vision comes to fruition. We also have port land, which is a little separate than the operations of the port, and the Enterprise Bridge, which is going to provide access out of the city. And what I'd like to make sure is that we involve the entire community to take a look at what kind of bridge to ensure that the bridge preserves our port. If it does not, I want to make sure that the residents know the consequences of closing the port, including all those involved, all of our stakeholders, so that that decision comes with knowledge and understanding of the consequences to our community, to our economy. So I do think that there are benefits to maintaining the port open, but I also want to make sure that as we see a need for bridges throughout our city, where not only do I want to see the bridge happen, the Enterprise Bridge, but I also want to see a bridge going out to the other direction towards like the Land Park area, and working with the future mayor so that we have exit ways throughout the city. So the port is, I think, an incredible resource to our community and a great asset that I'd like to be able to continue to see what we can do to help it thrive.
Thank you. Dante, same question. What is your perspective on the role of the port in the city of West Sacramento? What do you see as the benefits to the city, and what do you see as the impacts to the city?
So I, too, I am a port commissioner and was able to, let's see, I think I joined the Port Commission this past year or the previous year. And it's been a fascinating journey to learn not only about the port as someone who has lived near it in Southport for 17 years, but also to learn about the history of the port. I think it's important to know, at least for us, that the port does so much more than simply bring in import and export, and that's an important role. But also that because of the port land that we have, we've actually had successful partnerships with the city and the port in doing things like acquiring the land that Shell Tank was on next to the river and moving that so that it didn't contaminate the river. We've also done things like plan for the Stone Lock recreational amenities, which is going to be an amazing area that, again, is possible because of the partnership between the port and the city. Most recently, we've taken advantage of our location and our proximity to UC Davis and the fact that we have this top-tier research institute in the country that is turning out PhDs in agriculture to be able to take advantage of wet labs and creating a research park. We have Aggie Square. We have the fact that you have researchers that are building labs in the Bay Area that actually want to be closer to where their students and researchers are, and we are actually building on that in West Sacramento. It's huge and amazing when you think about the fact that we will now have high-wage jobs locally here because of the partnership with the port and the city. I also think it's important as we look towards the future that over the past 4 years, I think we've done a good job in engaging the workers at the port. I think we've done also a good job in engaging SSA, which is the leaseholder. I think what we haven't done such a great job of is actually engaging the community around the port that is also impacted by the port. And so when we think about the future, just like me, who is a resident that lives near the port, I have never been asked about, as a resident, the impact and what I envision the future should be. And as mayor, that would be a priority to engage that community so that we are ensuring the growth of the port as it grows, and the partnerships are happening, again, centered on our residents and our community.
Thank you. Speaking of community concerns, there's quite a bit of residential housing development approved or in the process for approval in West Sacramento. What is your response to residents who have concerns with the current infrastructure of our city being able to accommodate further development, including ingress and egress out of the city? Dante, that question, I'll go to you first.
I think that's a valid concern, and we should be really clear. I have heard from my own community members and from my district community members about what is happening even on Jefferson in regards to the large 344 apartment complex that has gone up there. That is not something I was on either the Planning Commission nor our City Council. And so I think it's important to also know as those things come up, sometimes your current city council did not have anything to do with that. I do think it's important that we keep community in mind because that is a concern as someone who goes in and out. West Sacramento is a logistical hub, and we need to make sure that we continue to keep both our infrastructure and traffic concerns in mind. And so 100% agree with that. I also think it's important that we realize that as new developments come in, they improve our roads. I will give you a couple of examples. We have the project that is going in behind Bridgeway Lakes, which will then, we have negotiated to ensure that that 2 road that leads to Clarksburg is now going to potentially turn into 4 roads and a full capital improvement project with sidewalks, with bike lanes. That is actually not being paid for by the city. That's being paid for through the development that comes. And so oftentimes as we look at Southport and we look at the development that's happened there, we look at the roads, we look at the parks, we look at the improvements, many of that was actually paid for by the developments, whereas our public tax dollars have gone to investing in areas that maybe don't get the same level of new development, like Broadwick, like Bright, like Washington District, like Bridgeway districts in the north. And so I think it's important that as we're balancing the need for development and the need for growth, that we continue to be smart. I also think it's important that we realize that West Sacramento is one of those unique cities that as we have grown, we actually haven't grown in sprawl. although we have grown in our housing numbers. And I think that's really important as well because we focused on infill and ensuring that we are growing smartly with our city.
Thank you. Mayor, same question. There's quite a bit of residential housing development approved or in process for approval in West Sacramento. What is your response to residents who have concerns with the current infrastructure of our city being able to accommodate further development, including ingress and egress in and out of the city?
Thank you, Jacqueline. Of course, that is a significant concern. As I've canvassed and heard from many of the residents, not only that, but schools, making sure that as we have more in housing built, that we have schools and places to go for retail shopping and grocery stores. So the traffic concern is significant in that we currently have Jefferson Boulevard coming out of the back end of where Yarborough and Liberty are being planned for construction. That's why I worked on making sure we expedited the Enterprise Bridge and used the funding from both the port and the city to begin the development of the architectural plan so that we can ask for federal funding. We are working on the I Street Bridge to make sure that we get the funding achieved because the barrier had been a little more in the state level. So hoping to get that addressed, and we're getting close to getting that resolved so that we can build a bigger bridge on that end. But putting Sutterville back on the map, that has been removed. And we'd like to make sure that we have another bridge on the other side so that we can see transportation and egress coming out of the city. It's not only a traffic concern, but it is a public safety should we have to do an evacuation. So making sure that we continue to push ahead. Yes, I see that the developers are building bigger roads, but that's only to provide, more traffic on the roads. So what we do need to have is more egress to be able to get people off and out of the city much quicker on the back end, on the south end of the city. And with that, we are hoping to move forward on those plans that are currently in place. And I'm, seeing some successful potential in the near future to see that getting resolved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have another question for you, Mayor Guerrero. The West Sacramento Chamber endorses Proposition 36, the ballot initiative that allows felony charges and increased sentences for certain drug crimes, including fentanyl and retail theft and property damage. What is your position on Proposition 36, and how would it affect residents and businesses in West Sacramento?
Well, Proposition 36 is a challenging proposition at this point in that it does not provide the funding to implement what it is planning on doing. However, it does provide some tools for our police officers so that if somebody does commit a crime, that there is a penalty in place, that there is a way to address that. I also think we need to provide substance abuse treatment, which is one of the solutions included. However, again, the funding is on the backs of education, and that is a concern of mine because what we have is if you cannot read at the third grade level, that is the pipeline to prison for our youth. What we need to make sure is that we are funding education. So in my position, it will be as mayor. Proposition 36 looks like it's going to pass. What I would like to do is to make sure that we are funding any losses and providing resources through the city by providing after-school programming for our youth so that they are able to read and tutoring and support so that the impact does not affect our local schools. We have a 2x2, and I've been sitting on the 2x2, which is the school and city, and also working with Yolo County Office of Education so that we can include children to make sure that they are successful and that any cuts to education does not have any harm to our community. And that is my role as mayor, making sure that all of our children are successful and that there's no impact to them. But Prop 36 providing the tools for our law enforcement community to make sure that our streets are safer. Any issues with retail theft, any concerns regarding those that have $0 bail, that there is some accountability, that there is some way to keep somebody off the streets that is causing harm and is inflicting any kind of criminal activity here in our community, and giving not only that resource, but making sure that our police officers are given the tools that they need as a city. not only Prop 36. Prop 36 is not the entire solution. I think it's incumbent on the city to make sure that we fund the police department, make sure we have enough police officers, and make sure we have a retention of trained and educated police officers in our community.
Thank you. Dante. The West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce endorses Proposition 36, the ballot initiative that allows felony charges and increased sentences for certain drug crimes, including fentanyl, retail theft, and property damage. What is your position on Proposition 36, and how would it affect residents and businesses in West Sacramento?
So when I think about what's happening with retail theft, I actually go back to Safeway on West Capitol. And I don't know how long you've been here, but I'm sure you remember that Safeway and what happened when it closed. And part of why it closed was retail theft, right? And this was years ago. It turned that area into a food desert. And we are very fortunate to have Rayleigh's. But my concern is that retail theft has continued to go up and businesses continue to struggle, both small and big. And so when I think about Safeway closing and I think about the potential of other businesses like, again, Rayleigh's potentially closing, and they haven't said that, but there are only so much that businesses can do, and there's only so much retail theft that they can actually take. And so there are a lot of issues, I would say, that are happening that need to be addressed in regards to retail theft and also in regards to behavioral health, both mental as well as drug use. And we do need more tools in the toolbox to be able to address retail theft. What I am hearing now from businesses is that some businesses have just stopped calling the police altogether, because they know either the police won't come or that even if the police do come, that the laws as they are don't allow to the convictions that are needed, one, for people to get the help that they need, but also in order for those retail thefts to be addressed and curbed. I also think it's important when we think about public safety and we think about even issues that we've heard around 1801 West Cap and open drug use happening outside, and some of the issues that we've heard from local businesses around there, that we too as city council members need to think about as we are opening up these programs, that we are also providing the resources that are necessary with our public safety to support those local businesses. And so it's not only about the tools that will happen by Prop 36, it's also about our investments and ensuring that we are doing community policing as well. And then, of course, education and going upstream both need to happen at the same time.
Thank you. We're going to squeeze in one more question, and then we'll go to closing statements. Dante, the 2024 ballot initiative, Proposition 33, would allow local governments to expand rent control. Under Proposition 33, cities and counties can control rents for any housing. They can limit how much a landlord may increase rents when a new renter moves in. It does not make changes to existing local rent control laws. Cities and counties would have to take separate actions to change their local laws. It does eliminate existing state of California rent control laws and protections. Do you support or oppose Proposition 33, and why?
So I'm voting no on Prop 33. And the reason why I'm voting no is, quite honestly, I look at my mom, who is here, who has her own property and is on a fixed income. And what I don't want is for us unknowingly to put in barriers or potentially take out properties that are currently on the market that do offer rental properties, because again, owners get scared or can't even afford to continue having those properties. And so I think that's really important that we understand that. I also think it's important that we think and understand what West Sacramento is. We start with affordable housing. We lead in affordable housing around this region. And so I don't think Prop 33 for West Sacramento is the right move. I actually think that we need to continue to invest in opportunities to increase housing, to increase affordable housing, to incentivize affordable housing by design projects. And I think that's where the city's role can be in supporting that. And so again, I don't think it is about rent control. I think it's about increasing those housing. I think it's also ensuring that we don't get in the way of, again, landowners or homeowners like my mom and like others who may need to increase, who often, by the way, don't. And so I think that's really important. How do we as city council members, how do we as city governments look for opportunities to invest in affordable housing?
Thank you. Mayor Guerrero, same question. The 2024 ballot initiative, Proposition 33, would allow local governments to expand rent control. Under Prop 33, cities and counties can control rents for any housing. They can also limit how much a landlord may increase rents when a new renter moves in. It does not make changes to existing local rent control laws. Cities and counties would have to take separate actions to change their local laws. It does eliminate existing state of California rent control laws and protections. Do you support or oppose Proposition 33, and why?
I don't have a position on Proposition 33 for the reason that sometimes propositions have unintended consequences, and they're developed in a way that may not have a positive impact directly on the jurisdiction. I do think, though, we have to have a more robust conversation on the increase of rent. We do have apartment units where it switches over property owners. It just turns over from one to the next. And those tenants receive a new bill every year up to the max, and some have received a new bill exceeding the max. And those tenants sometimes don't know their property rights. And that's why what you'll see, though, in Proposition 33, you'll see a huge amount of money. It'll probably be overwhelmed. It'll probably not pass because there are going to be those that are going to just flood the voters with information that it's very negative. But with that, I think we do as a city need to have a more robust conversation, not only just to build more affordable housing, but to help the tenants here in our city in those apartment units not owned by individuals who use it as an investment property, a home or a duplex. Those are investment properties for public employees as income in addition to their retirement. And we know that sometimes retirement dollars are not stretching far enough because the cost of living has gone up. And so, not only that, but maintaining an apartment, those duplexes or a home, is costly. And so that falls on the landlord, it falls on the property owner to cover those costs. So I do see that there is a way to balance making sure that private individuals who live here in the city and have their own investment property that they do rent out, that we work with them, but also take a look at those apartment units whose hands flip over from people out of the country who buy these apartment units, that we do track that, and we track it closely, and also take a look at code enforcement violations that we are seeing happening more frequently from these properties.
Okay, thank you. That concludes all of our questions. We will end with your closing statements. You have 2 minutes. We will start with Mayor Martha Guerrero.
Well, thank you. I just want to say it has been such an honor to be able to serve our community and to be engaged in learning more and more each and every time when I go out and canvass and see what it is that is happening, because there are changes happening in our community. Just keeping my finger on the pulse, learning from our residents, learning from our businesses through the Mayor Business Roundtable, seeing the challenges in our economy today, not only among the residents as they see the high cost of electricity, but the homeowners as they are paying higher property taxes, and listening to make sure that we are staying in touch, making sure that as we look at our veterans, staying in touch with our only VFW, providing the resources for our veterans. And also, as we see housing development, that we have senior housing in place so that our older adults can house in place close to their loved ones. But in addition to that, building housing as if it is market rate housing, that it is affordable. And there are ways that a city can ensure that. But also that we have the KIND project, which is below market. We provide the resources in place to make sure that happens. So helping our economy, our small businesses, and helping our entire community continue to thrive, which I would be honored to have that support moving forward on November 5th, 2024. And you can find out more information at www.marthaguerrero.com. And I'm grateful for all the endorsements that I've received, both from law enforcement and in addition to the congressional representative Doris Matsui, and businesses here in the community, and also from our Yolo County local elected leaders to continue the leadership that we need here in West Sacramento. So I'm very grateful and thankful to the Chamber for hosting this candidate forum.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Thank you. As we wrap up tonight, I want to once again thank you all for your time and also for being here and watching. West Sacramento is at a pivotal time and a pivotal moment. We've faced serious challenges: public safety, housing affordability, and now the opportunity of welcoming the A's. But these challenges are also opportunities to build a stronger, more united city. As your mayor, I will focus on the issues that matter most: investing in infrastructure, supporting small businesses, and ensuring our public safety resources are equipped to serve all residents. I'll build on the foundation we've laid, expanding affordable housing and advancing programs like our Community Response Unit so that West Sacramento remains a place where families can thrive. The arrival of the A's is a chance to bring new energy and growth to our city, but it must be managed thoughtfully to benefit everyone. I'm committed to working with our local businesses and neighboring communities to create solutions that support our residents and make this transition successful for all. I'm proud to have earned endorsements from the West Sacramento Democratic Club, the Stonewall Democratic Club, the Sacramento Bee, the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Sacramento Chamber Metro Chamber PAC, and the Yolo County District Attorney Association, and so law enforcement as well. These endorsements are a testament to the broad coalition of support behind my campaign, but ultimately, it's about the work we will do together to build a thriving West Sacramento for all of us. I'm ready to lead us forward with transparency, collaboration, and a vision for a brighter future. We need to put politics aside and put our community first. We deserve that. I hope I can count on your vote to build the West Sacramento we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here this evening. This brings our 2024 Candidates Forum to a close. The West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce would like to thank the candidates for their time over the course of the last 2 days and the viewers for tuning in and participating on the Facebook Live feed. Thank you to Spring Hill Suites in West Sacramento for allowing us to use your beautiful event space. The recording of both days of this forum will be available online on the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce website and our YouTube channel. On behalf of the Chamber, please vote November 5th, and we wish you all a good night.